Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast, Frenemies. We are getting close to getting all these done. Try to get them done in time. Who knows? Today, we focus on the Oakland Athletics. As joined, as always, by David Swor. I'm D.J. Cox.
I got to ask a question, DJ. How close are we?
I believe Lindsay told me after tonight we'd be at 17. When we finish the A's and Giants. So we got 13 left, and we've got about a week at the, less than a week.
Two a night, buddy. We're going to be burning the midnight oil.
I am telling you, man. I was like talking tomorrow's Saturday. I'm like, what kind of plan are we going to come up with for a Saturday? I don't know what you got in mind, but we got some catching up to do, man, no doubt. So I don't really know if we could do preview podcasts with their 4 or 5 games into the season, because that's pretty much like a halfway through the season already. So
well, we can always make it up and act like we didn't, it wasn't in the season. We'll just pretend like we had no idea. Then we'll look like geniuses.
This was filmed a month ago and just now got posted.
That's right.
David, we're going to talk about the Oakland A's, and this is an intriguing team in a lot of ways, and we got some teams that we've talked about that we're not sure which direction we're going to go with on them. I got a good feeling in what way I feel about the 2020 A's. I'm sure it's a little different from your perspective on them, but why don't you start us off with going over the 2019 season? What an amazing season for the A's in 2019. Why don't you talk a little bit about that for us?
Yeah, so 97 wins. Got to the wild card game. A lot of hype around that game. I remember watching that game, but right off the bat, man, the Rays jumped all over Sean Manaea, hit 2 homers off of him, I believe, in the first inning, and it was game over because they were facing one of my favorite pitchers, Charlie Morton, and he was on his game that night. They couldn't do anything with him. They set a franchise record for homers last year, 257 homers.
Wow.
They hit. And what's crazy? Yeah. What's crazy about them is they don't have any like what you would call big name players. But DJ, I'm going to surprise you with something that surprised me. The 4th most valuable player in baseball last year, Marcus Semien, almost 9 WAR, 8.9 WAR. Tremendous fielder. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm thinking 33 bombs from the shortstop. He hit 285. Do you ever hear Marcus Semien in anybody's top 10 player in baseball? Heck no. And he was the 4th most valuable player in baseball last year. In one thing that I saw, one article I saw, they had his WAR higher than Mike freaking Trout, man. I mean, we're talking world-class season last year, and that's the kind of stuff that carried them last year. They had a big season from Matt Chapman, Mark Cana, I think is how you say his name. He came out of nowhere towards the end of the year, definitely helped my fantasy team a whole lot. And then they had a down year from a couple players. Chris Davis was not his normal 40 home run self. And so you wonder what happens this year if those guys can continue to produce and all of a sudden Chris Davis comes up. But on the flip side, they lost 3/5 of their rotation. Homer Bailey, gone. Tanner Roark, gone. And there's one more in there that I'm missing. Oh, Brett Anderson, gone.
Anderson, yeah.
Jurickson Profar, gone. They traded him away. And so they are a very interesting team. We'll get into this further. I'm probably trend them higher than some people will. But after having said that, we discussed this a little bit off air. You forget about how tough that division is. And it makes you second guess a little bit because, they're banking on these guys in the rotation, banking on them. They had the number 1 and number 2 prospect in all of baseball last year. And listen, I love the way they brought them up last year. I am a huge fan of bringing these guys up and letting them pitch out of the bullpen and just air it out and gain some confidence and be dominant. And that's exactly what they did. They leaned on these guys real hard in September, and it worked. Luzardo had 16 strikeouts in 12 innings. Puck was 2-0 with a 3.18 down the stretch, pitching out of the bullpen. So those guys are 2 of your 5 starters now. Mike Fiers, man, let's talk about that for a minute. Where did that dude come from? 15-4 last year, 3.90 ERA. Montas, big fan. I'm a big fan. 9-2, 263. And then you had Sean Manaea come back last year. Really hot down the stretch. He kind of laid an egg in the wild card game, but 4-0, 1.21 ERA. So lots of ifs here, but you have the number 1 and number 2 prospect in baseball who dominated out of the bullpen last year. You got Manaea, who you know has number 1 potential. You got Montas, who has number 1 potential. What happens if all 4 of those guys are number 1s all of a sudden? They led the league in homers last year, or set a franchise record in homers last year. So we know they can hit a little bit. Now, and again, I'm not in love with teams that can't hit for average, and it proved out. When they needed to make contact last year against my boy Charlie Morton, they couldn't do it. So that worries me a little bit, but it's an interesting team, DJ. What do you think about it?
I'm going to go back to 2019 before I start crawling into this mess here, but not like you said, man, 97 wins, 2 years in a row, 2018 and 2019. We talked a little bit about good managers, man. Always been a Bob Melvin fan too. I mean, come on. This team has never has had any sort of budget that they spend a lot of money, and they just don't do it ever. And, you know, Melvin, I believe, is in his 9th or 10th season with the A's now, and consistently good, man. He's a great manager. He really is. And what a wizard for putting this team in playoffs for 2 years in a row like this. Like you mentioned, man, lost to the Rays in the wild card. Marcus Semien, 3rd in the MVP voting, 33 bombs, 92 ribbies. What a season. Came out of nowhere. He actually came up with the White Sox, and, boy, they just gave him away, and he ended up being a real stud. So they're probably kicking themselves a little for that.
Let me stop you right there, though. You said came out of nowhere, and I thought the same thing. But did you realize 2 years ago he had 27 homers? Or 3 years ago? He had a down season in between. 27 homers, down season, 33 homers. I mean, is Semien for real?
That's what you got to think of, man, because I saw that too. I saw, well, he had a good year before this, but nothing even close to this year. Or last year, I mean, like, he just blew it up out of nowhere. And that's what worries me, David. It really does. And when you look through this lineup at some of these guys, I mean, can they consistently take this to the next level is kind of what we're going to be looking at here is can he produce like that now? Is he that guy, or is he the guy that, you know, the White Sox gave up on, and that, you know, really hasn't done too much with the A's except for those 2 seasons. So it's to be determined, man. And you know, what a great season. I can't take that away from him, but I don't know, man. He set the bar pretty high last year, so it'll be really hard for him to live up to that expectation now and be consistent like that. So that'll definitely be something to watch for. And Stephen Piscotty only playing in 93 games last year hurt them a little bit. Consistent bat in their lineup. He was pretty good. He's a pretty good ball player, and they just didn't have him all year, you know. That would have helped him out. Blake Trinan, too. This guy, man, I'd take a lot of the fall on last year's team a little bit went on him, because this guy, man, in 2018 was 9-2 with a 0.78 ERA, 38 saves, just dominated it. And then last year he 16 saves, 4.91 ERA, and that's just how does somebody go from 0.78 all-star stud to 4.91 the next year? I don't know what I just don't get the inconsistency like that. I mean, that's not even close to the year before. And I understand I don't expect him to go 78 ever again, but man, he jumped all the way to 5 basically. So he was a disappointment for them, no doubt, at the back end of the rotation. And so I mean, I got to hand it to him, man. I would have never thought going into 2019 that they would put another season like they did in 2018. And they did, you know, and a lot of guys stepped up, and like you said, they hit a ton of bombs, and they backed it up with phenomenal pitching, really. I mean, those guys did a great job on the starting rotation, at least. And, I mean, what a great season for them. I'm not gonna lie about that. So,
well, and we talked about Trinan, but man, what about I can't think of his first name now, Hendricks, that closed for him last year. Listen, I had him on my fantasy team for a minute. 85 innings, 124 strikeouts.
Yeah.
.96 whip. What a stud. If Trinan could have been what he was the year before, man, I'm like you. I don't know what happened. Relievers are so volatile, man. Usually relievers are relievers for a reason. They're usually 1 or 2 pitch pitchers. And if you lose a feel for a pitch, that's all you have. You can't get hitters out. I remember my sophomore year, had an arm injury my freshman year. I could never find my curveball all season. Just couldn't find it. Couldn't if I had it on, I couldn't throw it for a strike. If I was throwing it for strikes, it was just a cement mixer. It was just spinning. Just couldn't find it. And in Major League Baseball, guys don't miss bad pitches. And so I don't know if Trinan had a problem with a pitch. I don't know if he had lost some velocity, hurt. I don't know. I had enough reading on it. But if had Trinan been himself last year, man, this team, they probably go further. You don't know. Those wild card games are tough. They're just one-game snapshots. But it sure would have made a difference for him. And I hated, to see him do that. I have a lot of respect for Oakland. And I have to say I'm a believer in their scouting. Because in what world does Homer Bailey suddenly find it again? You know what I mean? He's been bad for a long time, and suddenly he's good again. Brett Anderson had a great year for them last year. All these guys just out of nowhere start hitting. And I'm a believer in the Oakland scouting, and that's why with that and Melvin, I give them as good a shot as anybody in that division. Houston, I think, definitely has a little bit better team. But Dusty Baker's Houston's manager, DJ. They got Bob Melvin, so I don't know. I don't know. I tend to like them probably more than you do, but they got a lot of things going for them, man. A lot of things going for them.
Liam Hendricks is the guy you're thinking of.
Yeah.
So I looked today on ESPN's offensive rankings. Number 5, the Oakland A's. Pretty solid up there. That 5th best in baseball. I mean, we'll see. I don't believe that, but we'll see. I'm based off what they did last year. You can kind of give them the edge there, but I don't know, man. Let's get into 2020 now. So, what do you got for your strengths, man? What should make me excited about the Oakland A's? What should make Coach Hall excited about his 2020 A's?
Oh, is this Coach Hall's team?
Yes, sir.
How did we not have Big Bob on here?
I know, man. I know.
Oh,
that would have been great.
He would have told us last year's water under the bridge. Time to just wipe the slate clean, get it going, man. That's what he would have told us. I would love to hear it's a water under the bridge speech from Coach Hall again. It's been too long, Coach. We miss you. We got to have you on here.
It's been water under the bridge since '89, baby.
So for those of you who don't know, I've got to explain this, okay? So our teams at Temple usually had turnover, and we always were on the cusp, I felt like, of being really good. But every season we would tend to go through just a slump. And Coach's classic speech was, it's water under the bridge. And so, Coach, we love you, man. You got us through some tough times with it's water under the bridge. But anyway, so biggest strength, it's Marcus Semien, man. One of the top players in baseball. Last year, like we talked about, 4th in WAR. And something that's unsung about this team, nobody talks about it, but I looked it up today. One of the top defensive teams in baseball. Roman Laureano, stud out there in the outfield. Semien is a stud at short. Chapman's a good first baseman. They have a very good defensive team. And on top of that, the catcher that they're bringing up this year. So Fegley, who caught most of the year last year, they said was pretty poor defensively. The guy they got this year, Gold Glove caliber. They said pitchers love pitching to him. So, but the strength that I'm going to say on this team is Marcus Semien. If all these teams that make it need a superstar, and whether people believe it or not, last year Marcus Semien was an elite player. If he can be elite again, he can be that superstar that Oakland needs. I think that's the strength of their team.
So you're giving love to Sean Murphy, the catcher?
I am. He was a prospect, And listen, if Fegley was indeed bad last year behind the plate, and this guy's as good as everything I read defensively, you're going to see huge improvement from their pitchers, huge improvement. They don't need Fegley's bat. They can already hit. So what happens if the defense goes up a notch from behind the plate? We've talked about it. It's one of the, if not the most important position defensively there is, in my opinion. They control the game. They call the game. Pitchers have to know that if I spike this ball, he's going to block it. And so if Fegley was deficient back there, like everything I read, and Murphy is as good as they say he is, it's going to mean improvement on that team.
Yeah, I mean, Fegley's a Cub now. I saw him in the inter squad game the other day. He can hit a little bit. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to play defense because we don't need him to play I mean, we already talked about the 3 stud catchers we got, so I don't know what they were doing getting Fegley too, but we've legit got 4 amazing I mean, I wouldn't call Fegley amazing, but we've got 4 pretty solid catchers now with the Cubs, man. And I don't know what they're going to do with Fegley, but at least they've got him in case, a bunch of stuff happens to their catchers. They've got the A starter from last year, so it just helps our depth. But, yeah, I mean, you're relying on a rookie there and to get the catcher spot, and I'll get into that later. But, I mean, I see it. I will have to see what he does. But
I'm relying on Oakland scouting. I think it's proved itself. I don't have any reason to not believe it at this point.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's a good point. It really is. I'm not sold yet, but we'll see. No, but you're right. The strengths of this team are I think the offense. They were well-rounded last year. Matt Olson, 36 and 91. Marcus Semien, 33 and 92. Matt Chapman, 36 and 91. Laureano, 24 and 67. Piscotty on a short year, 13 and 44. And Chris Davis, a little down year for him, 23 and 73. That's just a lot of guys hitting a lot of bombs, really, and that's why they broke their record for – and you think about the old-time A's, too, and them breaking them guys' record. That's pretty impressive, man. It just goes to show you that they were a little more well-rounded 1 through 9 than some of those other A's teams that had, 3 or 4 or 5, mainly about 5 studs that just mashed. But that's impressive. It really is. And I'll give it to you, man. That was definitely their strength last year, and that's going to be their strength this year, I believe. And I'm just a little worried about a few holes, and that's what we'll get into later on. But what's your 2020 weakness?
I'm worried about the bullpen. Now, obviously, I'm not too worried about Hendricks. Petit last year had a great year. After that, it's looking pretty poor. I'm not a believer that Joaquin Soria is going to pull out of it. Lou Trevino had a great year 2 years ago. Last year, 5.25 ERA. Jake Dickman, 4.65 ERA last year. And then they got several guys vying for that last spot. And so it's hard to believe in that bullpen for me. All these playoff teams, all the teams that you consider the top teams, all have good bullpens. And I think that's definitely a hole for the A's. You could say pitching as a whole could be a hole for the A's, but it might be a strength too. So I don't want to go there with the starting rotation because, again, I just tend to believe in Oakland scouting. If they thought Luzardo was ready, then I believe that he's ready. If they thought Puck was ready, I believe he's ready. But I think the bullpen could definitely be a weakness for him.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with second base and catcher.
Ooh, second base, really rough. Really rough.
What is going on there, David? Tony Kemp?
Well, here's what I read, because I thought the same thing. Why would you trade Profar? Well, I guess Profar got a bad case of the yips last year. It's West Coast baseball, so we never get to see it. You don't see that a lot of times in a box score. But with these young pitchers, they decided to go with defense. And Profar, while he hit with some power last year, he hit 218. And so I don't understand it. I don't understand if you're going to trade Profar, why you don't just go get you a good second baseman if you believe in this team. But the guy that they got out there backing Kemp up right now was their top prospect like 2 years ago. He's still only 24 years old. He has not hit at all at this level. but I think there's a reason they're keeping him around. And it just makes me wonder. I think Kemp's probably holding a place. And, I think about those World Series Yankees teams, okay? I hate to keep talking about them, but that's my team. I'm a huge follower, just like you're a huge follower of the Cubs. Who was the second baseman of the 96 Yankees? Can you name him?
Would that have been Knobloch?
Mariano Duncan. Mariano Duncan. He had a terrific year, and they had Pat Kelly that was in there. And I think probably their thought process in all this is, hey, we can mash homers. We need somebody that can catch the ball for these young pitchers. I'm not saying I buy into that. I don't know. Tony Kemp's pretty underwhelming. I don't understand that. The catching spot, I totally get it. I 100% get it. They're handing it off to a rookie. He was one of their better prospects as well. He got to play a little bit last year. He didn't hit a whole lot. But I guess the defense part is a real factor. And if they can continue to have offense, I totally get that part of it, 100%.
It makes sense from the catching spot. It does. I mean, I just saw Tony Kemp on the Cubs, and he can run. I'll give him that. I can't say much more about him, really, to be honest with you. I don't know. I just have a hard time with those two spots. Are really, really weak. And like you said, the backup to Kemp, he don't hit a lick either. So it's got to be a defensive spot for him this year. And I don't know what they're doing there. To me, they're two pretty big holes. And if you're a 97-win team from last year and you're trying to get to the next step, which these guys are trying to do, let's just be honest. Do you think that if the A's make the playoffs and lose the wild card game, it's kind of the same thing, right? I mean, they just keep doing that. So how do you take a 97-win team and get a series playoff win or compete for the American League title? You don't do it by leaving holes at second and catcher. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, I don't know, man. I really, really have a hard time with these spots.
It just depends on how much they think it cost them last year. That's really what it boils down to. I mean, in our eyes, we look at stats. I mean, I don't know how many Oakland games you watched last year. I can tell you that was a big goose egg for me. But, if Profar and Fegley, if they felt like they were costing them games, there's more value than just in batting average. And honestly, Profar, other than power, Kemp's going to hit 218, I guarantee it. And so if he hits 230 and plays good defense, he's an upgrade over Profar. If Fegley can keep guys from running and let those rookies spike that ball on the ground and strike some people out, they're not going to miss Fegley's offense. But I'm like you, man. I just would have liked to seen them bring in, maybe a veteran placeholder type that you could fall back on. And they didn't do that, man. They're rolling the dice with Kemp and Barreto over there, and I'm kind of with you. Barreto, by the way, came over in the Donaldson trade. I don't know if you knew that. He was their top prospect 2 years ago.
Okay.
And so, like I said, he's got some talent, but yeah, I think he hit 123 last year, so that's not real inspiring.
Look, man, I'm going to keep harping on these guys a little bit because I'm with you on the bullpen too. I think it's not that good. I really do. And the rotation is solid on paper. Okay, I'll give you that. I look at the stats and I'm impressed. But, man, do we really know if these guys are going to pitch? I mean, we'll see. I mean, Puck is going to be the 4 guy, and he's never started, consistently like he's going to be asked to do. And Minaya, I mean, he was 4-0, but 4-0. I mean, he didn't start much.
He was coming off an injury.
Yeah, you're right.
Minaya had a good season the year before that. I'm a believer in Minaya. Frankie Montas, I was a believer in him until they found out he was taking steroids. So that makes me wonder a little bit. I tell you, out of that group, the one that I don't trust, and, man, people would roast me on MLB Network for saying this, but how can you trust Mike Fiers? Like, what is that? I just don't know. What in the world? He was – I mean, I just don't understand him. And it's not just a one-year thing. He was pretty good the year before that too. So, again, I guess you have to trust their scouting. And that's a big ballpark. It's a great place for a pitcher. I'm a believer in Luzardo and Puck. I'm not going to lie about it. They were dominating in the bullpen. And so now we know they have the stuff. I'm a believer, man. Are they going to both be number ones? I don't know about that, but I think they'll hold their own. Are they going to be as good as Homer Bailey? Sure. Absolutely. I think they're going to be as good as Homer Bailey. So we'll see.
Homer Bailey, by the way, that was the worst signing in the history of baseball by the Reds.
Can you blame?
Guy was awful.
Yeah, he's definitely kind of a head case. I can't blame the Reds in that moment for doing that.
I can't either.
A really good season, and he does have good stuff. But what goes on up here is questionable, I think, with Homer Bailey. But, yeah, that deal turned out to be a bomb. If I'm not mistaken, did they release him or just exchange bad contracts? I don't remember. But, he kind of turned it around in Oakland a little bit, man.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So,
he did, and I really – man, that's been the problem with the Reds, not to get on the Reds or anything, but they thought that they found a guy that they could throw money at it from the pitching standpoint, and it completely backfired on him, and he goes to Oakland and kind of shows a little signs of what he was in the past. And, at that point, you just got to kick him to the curb, and the A's already kicked him to the curb, so something's not right there with Homer Bailey. I mean, just be honest. I mean, guy's made a ton of money. Holy cow. Candid to him from that perspective. He's stolen a lot of money from a lot of teams and been terrible. But, whew, wow. Yeah, I'm thinking that was a good move, just cutting their ties with him and bringing these young guys up and put them in the spots. Good move on the A's part.
You've been all about team rolling the dice, DJ. And listen, the A's are gamblers, buddy. They are really rolling dice. They don't have backup plans for them. So they have to believe in them.
They kind of have to, and to back them up a little bit with the catcher and second base positions, they're not going to spend money. They're not going to go sign a monster deal for a second baseman or a catcher. They'd never do that. They don't do that. They're just not going to spend money. So you kind of just got what you got, and you just kind of keep what you keep, and you plug in Band-Aids along the way and make it work. And with the budget you got, and you rely on your scouting department, which they've made a movie about, so we know they're doing something right about it. So, I mean, they are what they are, and it keeps working. I got to hand it to them. It really does. And I just don't know, man. I'm just something just doesn't seem right, man. I don't know. I put my finger on a few things, but I don't feel it, man. I really don't. So, Coach, I hope they prove me wrong, man. For your sake, we've talked a lot about the A's when I was in college, man. We talk about them a lot, and it was a lot of fun talking about them with you while you were making fun of the Cubs. And so I'm telling you, man, I hope it turns around for you and you have another good year. But David, I mean, seriously, what are they trying to do? Are they good? Are they trying to just do what they've been doing, or are they going to try to make the next step? And
yeah,
I don't see them doing it.
They're the West version of the Rays. Like I said, I can't help but believe in them. 97 wins the last 2 seasons. Most people can't name 3 people on their team. And now, like I said, the guys that they're putting in that rotation are the primo talent in the league. Primo talent. They hit the most home runs in the league last year. I'm not all in on them, but I saw that their World Series odds were 30-1. I'd be betting it. I'm not joking. I think if everything went right, this could be a World Series team.
Ooh.
Yep. Now listen, everything might go wrong, and we'll talk about this in a minute. And they might be a 4th place team. It's a total gamble. But if you're a gambler, they have the roster that could surprise people.
So this walks us right into the next question. What do you feel is the best case scenario for the 2020 A's?
Well, I just said it. The ceiling is high. So I think the division is in play. The problem is this is a 4-team race for this division now. 3 and a possible 4th. The Rangers are really good. The Rangers have one of the better rotations in baseball now, which is Feels so weird to say because their pitching has always been bad, it seems like. The Astros are talented. The more I think about the Astros, the less I like them, though. Because I don't know if you knew this or paid, remember it.
What?
But they fired half their scouts. Did you know that? They got rid of and they got rid of their scout in center field with the camera. I think it's going to make a big difference. Now, they're talented, but they got rid of their manager. They got rid of half their scouting department, and they don't have Garrett Cole anymore. So I like the Astros, but I think in a sprint, the A's could be very interesting. So the ceiling is the division or more. So I don't know. What do you think?
4th place.
Is the top?
4th place.
DJ. Lindsay, are you there?
No, she's not.
I just needed to talk to someone and do something about baseball for a
minute. Listen, man, I told you that I'm not a fan. I just don't feel it, man. I'm telling you, Astros are going to win this division. The Angels are going to be phenomenal. The Rangers are.
Let's talk about the Angels. Now, listen, they got Rendon, one of the top players in baseball. They got Trout, one of the top players in baseball. But neither one of those guys can pitch. So who's going to do that?
Ohtani.
Once a week. Once a week. Now, Ohtani's a stud. I can't wait to do the Angels. They're an interesting team, not going to lie. But you're going to tell me Tehran and Ohtani pitching once a week and maybe Griffin Canning can do something? Come on, man. Now, they can hit the ball. No doubt about it. I'm not,
They can mash.
They can mash the ball. 257 homers, DJ. 257 homers.
They just got Anthony Rendon. He was like him and Mike Trout, and Albert Pujols still hits 30 bombs every year somehow. He's still 30-90 every year.
I'm getting dumber. The more you
Shohei
talk.
Ohtani's hitting. That guy's a stud. These guys are loaded.
They are loaded.
Loaded.
You have to pitch the baseball. Somehow you got to hold them to less runs than you score.
You just got to out-hit them. You have to out-hit them. That's all you have to do. You have to score more runs than your opponent. That's the name of the game.
What if Luzardo and Puck turn out to be, Strasburg and Corbin?
Then they're gonna be really, really dominant. And
they showed that they could do it last year. Down the stretch, that was the 2 best relievers they had.
We'll see. We'll see, man. They've been handed the keys now, and they're relying on those 2 guys. And I'm not sold.
It's going to be tough.
I'm not sold. It is.
I do think the A's are better than the Angels. I do think that. Now, some things could change that. Don't get me wrong. Injuries, whatever. I do think the A's are better than the Angels. I'm not sure I think that they're better than the Astros or the Rangers, but they got Bob Melvin. They won 97 games last year, and they got 2 of the top prospects in baseball now in their rotation instead of Homer Bailey and Tanner Roark. I'm just telling you, it's prime.
The Texas Rangers are better than the Oakland A's too. They are. They are, man. I'm telling you.
I can understand that argument because they have pitchers. I can understand that argument a little bit. I couldn't deny that might not be true.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, man. This is a fun division. It really is. I mean, you get into thinking about what's gonna possibly happen here, and you got the Mariners out there too, and nah.
The Mariners?
Nah. What, do you like the Mariners?
No, do you? You said you got the Mariners out there like they were going to compete or something. What?
No. I was saying you got the Mariners out there. Nah, that's what I was saying. Like, they're going to be in the bottom down there. I got that. That they're down there. Like, I'm not saying that the A's are worse than them. Like, I'm not putting them in that category. But I'm not putting them above those 3 teams this year. I'm just not. I'm saying 4th place.
30-1 odds, DJ.
Yeah. I'm not taking that.
Out there. Listen, They got the same odds as the Cubs. Same odds. Vegas is more right than they're wrong.
That's garbage.
That's how they make money. I'm telling you, man.
Garbage.
If I was a betting guy,
Cubs are way better than the A's. Cubs are way better. Way better than the A's. Cubs.
They might be. I don't know. They might be. They weren't last year.
So what's the worst case scenario?
Well, if that pitching falls on its face, they're in big trouble, and that's totally possible.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you.
If it falls on its face, but listen, DJ, you can't deny that they for sure have 2 number 1 starters right now. Whether Luzardo and Puck do anything, they have 2 number 1 starters. Now you've never heard of them.
Who?
Sean Manaea is totally a number 1 starter. He's got number 1 starter stuff, and so does Montas, assuming his drugs weren't helping him more than we think.
Montas, you're relying on a roid guy that's not taking roids anymore. Come on.
Well, I'm telling you, 2 number 1 starter stuff. At least 2. Now Manaea's got an injury history. That's worrisome. I'll give it. I'm like I said, this all comes with caveats. They have to stay healthy, okay? And Puck and Luzardo got to step up. I'll give you that. I'm just saying that their ceiling is way higher than they get credit for. And honestly, no joke. All joking aside, a lot of it's because they play on the West Coast. Think about this. What if Marcus Semien played for the Yankees? He'd be a household name. I'd have his jersey on right now. But nobody's heard of Marcus Semien, even though he was the 4th best player in baseball last year. And like I said, man, some things got to happen. They got some production out of guys that might not produce, but they also didn't get production out of a guy who falls out of bed every day and hits 40 homers, in Chris Davis. So I don't know, man. Like, I'm more of a believer than I'm not, but the worst case scenario is none of this works out, and then they're going to be terrible. And that's totally possible.
I don't even know if I can give a worst case scenario because my best case scenario was pretty much their worst case scenario. So
they're definitely better than the Mariners.
Yes, I'll give them that. There's no way they go below the Mariners. They're by themselves down there, but I don't know, man. I'm just not sold. I just am not a fan. I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
I can understand, all joking aside, I can understand it. I just don't know why you can't see the ceiling. That's what I don't get.
I don't see it, man, because I just am more in love with the Angels than I probably should be, just being honest with you. Because,
I don't get it.
Well, how can you not, though, David? How can you seriously not? Look at the guys on that team. How can you not fall in love with that team?
Them.
I'm telling you, man. Their starting pitching is the problem. Yes.
And it's epically bad. Now, listen. They got Joe Madden now, and that's a wild card. But is Joe Madden a better manager than Bob Melvin?
Yes. Yes.
DJ, we just said they won 97 games the last 2 seasons, and you can't even name anybody on their team. Nobody knows who they are.
The Tampa Bay Rays made the World Series. The Tampa Bay Rays with Joe Madden. Come on, David.
He took a
team that hasn't won a World Series in 108 years and won the World Series.
If he takes the Angels to the World Series, even though they have a high payroll and some studs on the team, they should build a statue in the middle of Angel Stadium to him, because there's no way that's a World Series rotation as it is right now. No way. I can't see them getting anybody out.
You really don't like Ohtani?
They already are saying that he's only going to pitch once a week, and he's not going to pitch deep in games. So 5 innings out of 7 days, nope, not in love with that at all.
I don't know, man.
Who's their closer?
It's a good question.
Exactly.
Tehran could come back, and Andrew Heaney's been good.
Can't stay on the field. Griffin Canning can't stay on the field.
Yeah, Griffin Canning cannot stay on the field. You're right about that. I mean, that's their problem. There's no doubt about it. It's their rotation. I give you that, but I'm not sold on the A's rotation. They got some question marks, I mean, and I'll take that Angel offense over the A's any day.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
And I'll take the Rangers pitching way over the A's too.
Without knowing what Luzardo and Puck are going to be, I'm going to give you that one too.
So that's my problem, man. Like, I'm not like completely trying to dog on the A's because, like you said, man, we got to give them credit. Holy smokes, they're talented, and they won 97 ball games last year. Wow. But something just doesn't seem right. It doesn't. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be very interesting, no doubt.
It really will. Yeah, it definitely will.
What do you got for position battles?
So, like we talked about at second base, that's a head scratcher. Tony Kemp has literally never done anything. I'm sure he's a super nice guy. Tony, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. But you don't seem like a second baseman that should start on a playoff team. I'm sorry. And so that's a huge hole. I'm not as worried about the catching situation. Like I said, I actually think that might be a positive in a lot of ways. I'm going to go back to those Yankee teams. The Yankees had Mike Stanley, who was a stud hitting catcher, very underrated. When did they get good? When they brought Joe Girardi in, who couldn't hit his way out of a paper bag, but played great defense and handled pitchers. And so I'm not worried really about the catching situation as long as he can hit his weight, hit 230, 250 and hit a home run every once in a while and play good defense. That'll be an upgrade. I don't know what to think about second base.
Did you just say Mike Stanley was a hitting stud?
He was a very underrated hitting catcher. Go back and look at his stats with the Yankees, man. I remember me and my dad were mad when we found out they were getting rid of Mike Stanley. He hit some clutch homers. I'm not saying, like he was a Hall of Fame caliber or anything, but he was very solid. And you got to think, they brought in Joe Girardi. Go look at Joe Girardi's hitting stats about the time they brought him in. He was terrible. And so, we were thinking, what are they doing? Stanley, I'm thinking, just off the top of my head, probably hit 275 every year. 15, 20 homers. And then you're getting Girardi, who hits 250 with no power. But, man, he knew how to handle those pitchers. And so, again, you would like to have a catcher. That's a big advantage if your catcher can hit. But I don't think it's a must.
I mean, you nailed his stats, really, to be honest with you. His career, 270 hitter, average season was 21 and 78, and he had 3 really studly years with the Yankees. Yeah, okay, you're right. A little better than I thought he was going to be. A little better than I thought.
I'm not like you, man. I don't understand second base. That worries me a little bit because in my mind, if Oakland for real thought they were for real, they would have found him a second baseman that wasn't named Tony Kemp. And so that does worry me.
Man, that's got to be the spot, man. Tony Kemp is here. He's great to have on your team, David, because the Cubs had him. And you know what he's great to come in there for is to go play second base when Ben Zobrist, who's not your greatest defender anymore, late in the game, he's sticking Kemp. And when you go into extra innings this season and you got a guy on second base to lead the inning off, put in Tony Kemp. By all means, let that guy just zoom into home plate and win the game for you. Those are great roles for him, man. Steal a base late in the game. But, man, you're starting second baseman. Got a problem with that, and that's a position battle I want to focus on here. Maybe I just don't see they're not gonna get anybody though. That's the problem. They're not gonna pick up anybody in a trade, so I'm pretty sure Kemp's gonna be the guy, and we'll see.
This is going to be one of the most interesting trade deadlines. It's either going to be super boring, or somebody like the A's, who knows that's what they need to push themselves over, is going to make a deal. I'm not sure which it's going to be. The A's don't have a lot of money. That hurts them. I guess they're getting a new ballpark, so that's pretty cool because they probably play in the worst one outside of maybe the Rays that there is.
Good point.
But I would love to see them get a solid second baseman. I have no idea who would even be available. That is just going to be interesting. But again, they didn't even bring in a veteran outside of Tony Kemp. That was even interesting. There was some guys floating around, waiver wire type guys. that could at least be interesting. And they didn't even do that. And so that does worry me, man. As a guy that thinks the A's have a chance, it makes me wonder how much ownership and their GM thinks they have a chance. But we'll see.
So I'll echo what you just said. Leads us right into our next point: the key ads from the offseason. Tony Kemp, Austin Allen, Jake Diekman. That's it. I mean,
yeah,
you didn't do anything to improve on this team, and I'll give you to their defense. I'll give you this: they are relying on those young pitchers now to plug in, and that's kind of what they were looking at, and the catcher. Those they're plugging in the prospects, which I don't have a problem with. I really don't. I think you're relying on them a little too much with a 97-win team is my only problem about it. That's all I'm saying. If this was an 80-win team who's trying to get to the playoffs or doing something different, maybe, I'm not having much problem with that as I am now, but you got to make the next step if you're the A's, and they didn't do it in the offseason. They got an F in the offseason, to be honest with you, as far as getting anybody even. I don't even know who anything about Austin Allen or Jake Diekman at all. I really don't. But I mean, you got to say it's Tony Kemp because he's a starter, right?
Right. Yeah, it would be. I'm like you, F for sure. They could have definitely used another quality reliever. There was plenty of them out there. I don't understand it. But again, 97 wins the last 2 years, and I can barely name anybody on their team. So I just have to trust them that they know what they're doing.
All right, so out of these key losses, what do you think? Homer Bailey, Brett Anderson, Tanner Roark, Josh Fagley, Jurickson Profar, Chris Herman, Blake Trinan, Jarrell Cotton, and Matt Harvey. Yuck.
I don't think they'll miss any of those guys. I hate to say that. I mean, Brett Anderson had a nice year last year. Somebody's got to replace Brett Anderson, so I would probably go there first. But I'm excited if I'm an A's fan. It's so interesting to me to see these guys try to develop and see what they can make of themselves. So I'd have to go with Brett Anderson.
So I'm going to go Blake Trinan. The only reason I'm going to do that is because of the potential of what he did 2 years ago. I mean, he's shown that he can be that guy, and I'm kind of, to be honest with you, I'm excited the Dodgers got him because if you find lightning in the bottle and you find the Trinan of 2 years ago, wow. Yeah, they really are going to need that. And, if the A's kind of blew it as far as that goes, I don't know, but I think he's going to end up being the one because, like you said, you mentioned that their bullpen was weak, and I think that may be the only spot that really kind of hurts him only if he comes back and is the Blake of 2 years ago, which was phenomenal. So he's got it in him. So we'll see.
The Dodgers need really bad. I think Kenley Jensen is trending the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And so the Dodgers. That was a very shrewd pickup to pick up Trinan basically for nothing, 1 year deal. I'm thinking. It's going to be interesting to watch. I'm with you on that. The A's could have used him even if he was last year's Trinan. They could have used him because the back end of that. I mean, basically they traded Diekman for Trinan. That's a downgrade. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And now they're not going to have Luzardo and Puck to lean on down the stretch. So kind of scary.
So who's your prospect?
Man, I'm going with Sean Murphy. So listen, if you could describe what a catcher – this guy's probably going to be a manager someday, just what I read. He's a former walk-on. He had no college offers from anybody. Ends up being a third-round pick. That's an awesome story. Great defense. They said one of the strongest arms in baseball, and he's a contact hitter. What does Oakland need on that team? Somebody that can just get on base because they have the Bombers behind them. And, honestly, their farm system is really uninspiring. They wasted 3 draft picks. They wasted a first-round draft pick on Kyler Murray. You can't waste 3 years in a row your first-round draft picks aren't going to make it. That's not going to work. And so Their farm system's ranked anywhere between 15th and 26th. That's a pretty wide range. And the write-up that I saw on them said they were heavy on guys who will probably make it to the majors, but no star power at all. So the prospect that I like the most is Sean Murphy, their catcher.
I'm going to go Luzardo.
You love him, don't you? See there?
This guy is the number one prospect in the A's organization. He's going to get a full shot here.
In baseball.
Number 6 overall in baseball. He's coming up. We're going to see him this year. Saw some video on him today. Not going to lie to you, I'm impressed. His fastball's nasty, man. It's got a little tail to it. That's sick. You know, he's a lefty and he's got movement. That's good. That's a great thing when you're a lefty and you got movement. He was 6-0 last year for the A's. You know, so I don't know. He came up. That was in the minor leagues with it. You know, in 12 innings last year, he only gave up 2 earned runs on the major league level. His overall minor career is 14-7 with a 2.47 ERA. Fastball, curveball, and his changeup. And David, here's another good thing about him. He's already had his Tommy John, so he's just coming off of that, and he's throwing hard, and he's totally fine. He's 97-98 from the left side. Don't have to worry about his arm blowing out again. Not too many guys have that happen to him a second time, so he's already got that out of the way. If you do have it happen to you a second time, you're pretty much done. Hopefully that doesn't happen to him. But, I mean, think about it, David. He's got that out of the way because, like I said earlier, man, these guys that throw hard like this, they got to go through it once. And he's done, and now he's going to be full-time, and sky's the limit. But he's got to prove it still.
Yep.
So, you got any trivia for me?
Let's see. Let me find it here. Hold on. Go ahead and give me your trivia. I do have one. I just got to find it. Give me a second.
All right. So, the Athletics, before they came to Oakland, were in 2 other cities in America.
Oh.
Name the 2 cities.
Oh, man, I should totally know this. But I don't. I'm just going to be honest. I do not know it. Were they in Washington for a minute?
They were not.
Hold on. Let me think about this. I know this. They were in Boston for a minute.
Nope.
Okay, tell me. I don't know. I'm way off.
Kansas City Athletics and Philadelphia Athletics.
Philadelphia. I knew there was one on the East Coast. I just couldn't think of where that was. So can you name any of those players from Philadelphia or Kansas City?
Satchel Paige.
Satchel Paige?
Kansas City Athletics. I don't know. Maybe the Kansas City Monarchs. I don't even know.
You totally just made that up. So I'm actually one of the few that's glad that Oakland's staying where it's at. You know, they were talking about them moving to Vegas. I think Vegas. Yeah, I'm out on that, man. Vegas, they just move people in and out of there. You know what I mean? Most people aren't there to live. I want a team that's got a hometown fan base, man. I'm kind of glad to see them in Oakland, staying in Oakland. I'm interested. I haven't seen anything on their new stadium or anything, but I think it's really going to help them to get out of that. What is it, the Coliseum or whatever it is they play in? It's awful, man. It's awful. So.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I think just recently they came to a deal to where they're going to be staying in Oakland, and I was like you, man. I was excited to hear that. You know, I'm not a big fan really of these cities losing their teams. I just don't like that. I don't like that the Expos are now the Nationals. You know, it just doesn't feel right. I mean, just things like that just don't sit well with me. So, you know,
I said that was a good move, though. I watched the Montreal 30 at 30, and I get it. But what I remember is watching really good Expos teams with no fans in the stands. The teams with Vlad Guerrero and those guys. I like the Washington team. I like that they have a team there. I like that their stadium's full. I can't really blame them for wanting to move them. To be honest with you, the Rays need out of Tampa. I'd love to see them go to Nashville or somewhere, wherever. The Tampa thing's not working. I'm worried about Miami. They don't seem to want to support the Marlins. Of course, the Marlins haven't done much to let them support them. But I am glad to see Oakland stay.
No, I'm with you on those other teams you mentioned too. I'm just saying it's sad that they can't stay in those cities because Miami's a great city, man. That's a huge city, and how do they not support them? Tampa's a great city. We've been there in baseball trips. We know all about Tampa, and it's a great city, man. And I just wish they could hang on to them. That's all I'm saying. There's probably better spots for them, no doubt, because they're terrible fans. So,
yeah,
but it's just hard, man, because you just wish they could stick around where they're at.
Yeah, I would think Miami. To me, Tampa's broken. It's not going to work. They've had good teams, and they still won't come. But Miami is kind of a head scratcher, and I think a lot of it has to do with what Marcus said. We've talked about this multiple times. They've not had an identity. They get good teams, they dump them, and it's hard, I think, for fans to get behind it. That's obviously a very Hispanic town. Hispanic people, their culture tends to be baseball people. And so I think the Marlins have potential to be a great baseball town, but Jeter and company need to keep their players there. They need to sign some of these players and let them grow up there and stay there and not know that they're going to get traded in year 4, because they can get more prospects. So anyway,
did you find that trivia question?
No. And I studied up on it. I just cannot find it. We'll have to do that in another episode. It was totally a pitching one. You would have loved it.
Oh, who are the Bash brothers? That was Mark McGwire and Jose Canseco. Yes.
Very good. Very good.
I won. Yes. All right. So David, the Coliseum is the only A's stadium in our lifetime. Have you been there?
Never been there. Are you going to try to make it before it goes down?
It depends on how long it is because I'm not really on the road to California, to be honest with you, anytime soon. And I don't have hardly any desire to go see it. It's a dump, like you said. I'm not a fan. I'll tell you what, Noah, what a great place to pitch, like you mentioned, man. That foul territory, man, is enormous, and your defense goes and gets it, man. And balls that are going 15 rows into the stands at Wrigley are going into gloves at the Coliseum, man. So I don't know. I just don't like the whole look of it. It's got, it's got football mixed in with it, and it just you watch Raiders games in the middle of a A's field, and yuck, man. I don't know. Not a fan, but like you said, man, I hope now that they're going to stay that they can build a new stadium and that they do it right, man. I'm telling you, man, they got to come to us to help them build a ballpark, man. We can make some awesome features in the fields.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, no, so who's your favorite all-time A?
Well, I could have went a lot of different directions with this.
Yeah.
And my knee-jerk reaction is to go with Mark McGwire again, but I didn't. I loved the Bash brothers back in the day. I loved Jose Canseco, even though he was a jerk. I was a really big Ricky Henderson fan. I thought it was cool that those guys played together. Oh, I know. You love him.
Nope.
But, after I thought about it a little bit, my favorite all-time A, and, Reggie Jackson's another one you could throw in there, but I never really watched Reggie Jackson. So all I've seen is highlighted Reggie Jackson, so I didn't include him. I really liked Dave Stewart back in the day. He was so intimidating. I went back and looked at his stats. He played on 3 World Series teams. He went 4 straight seasons and won more than 20 games. 4 straight seasons. And I remember him looking over that glove. He always kept that hat real low and kind of looked under it. He was an intimidating dude, man. And I used to love to watch Dave Stewart pitch. I like a pitcher who's not afraid to throw it at you and kind of had that hateful look on his face. So I'm going to go with Dave Stewart.
Dave Stewart. Man, you cannot deny he was just the horse for them when we were kids, man. I'll tell you what, man, 88, 89, 90 A's, those guys were just awesome, man. So much fun to watch. Made the World Series 3 years in a row and only won one of them, but man, what a tough team they were for that part. And man, I would say I'm going to say this from the kid in me, okay? I'm not going to say it now because I know he's a big jerk and a roid rage guy, but how do you not like Jose Canseco and Mark McGwire, man? When we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Jose Canseco, he looked like Superman in a baseball uniform, man, to be honest with you. He did, I swear, and the guy from Cuba, and he comes in, and he's just massive, and he's doing everything, that a baseball player wants to do is hitting bombs, and he's getting all the girls, and he's a superstar, and he's making all the money, and how awesome was that? And to bash with McGwire, and just so cool, man. And it's just what a stud he was. Now, David, I'm going to ask you this because I want your opinion on this. Had Jose Canseco not roided, Hall of Fame? I mean, you're let me say this before we get into this. You are a guy that puts the roids guys in. So I've never really heard your case on Jose Canseco, man. He's got some pretty intriguing stats. What do you do with Jose Canseco?
I've not looked at his stats in full. I think he had around 430 homers, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to pull him up here now.
462 with 1,400 ribbies.
Yeah, he was a great player.
He had 10 dominant years. He did.
For me, I know we don't like, a lot of people don't like thresholds. But if you're in that roid era, when they were hitting all those home runs, 500's got to be the floor for me. And I mean, if you obviously took roids, and we all know Jose Canseco did, that's very well documented. But there is definitely a case for Jose Canseco to be made. I think am I mistaken, he was the first 40-40 guy. Is that right?
Yep.
So I mean, you could definitely make a case for him. He wouldn't be in for me. He doesn't make the cut. I would definitely put guys like Sheffield in before him. But you can make the case, and oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't think Sheffield did?
No, I know Sheffield would definitely be in if he wasn't for steroids. He was awesome. I don't know, man. He's like, to be honest with you, he's like right there, man. He's right there, and if you were one of those guys that wanted to put him in, I wouldn't blame you. I'd have to look a little more into it. But I don't know, man. He meets my criteria, and I don't know. I think he's there. I really do. If he didn't, but here's another thing, that this guy completely changed the game of baseball. And we're not going to get into this with his book, but everything that he says is true. And he threw Pudge under the bus, and Pudge is in the Hall of Fame now. And yeah, I don't deny for 1 second that he was wrong about Pudge. He always picks on A-Rod, which is hilarious to me, because A-Rod's trying to buy the Mets, and he's telling A-Rod that she's telling J-Lo that A-Rod's cheating on him, and I guarantee you that that's happening, and they're going to buy the Mets, and then they're going to divorce, and it's going to be a mess. I mean, we already know that's going to happen, so these celebrities are all going to break up, but whatever.
How about A-Rod calling for a salary cap? Isn't that the funniest thing you've ever heard?
That is the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. Unbelievable that he would do that. What is he smoking? I mean, this guy is
I hate A-Rod. I've never liked him. When they signed him, I was excited at first, but it didn't take me long. And let me just say this. As bad as hate's a strong word. As bad as I disliked A-Rod the player, man, I loathe A-Rod the announcer. It is so bad, in my opinion. A lot of people didn't like Joe Morgan and John Miller. I hate listening to Rick Sutcliffe and A-Rod call a game. It's the worst, the absolute worst. What's your opinion on that?
Oh, he's terrible, and Joe Morgan's terrible too. But I do love John Miller. John Miller's got a great baseball voice. I love John Miller. But Joe Morgan just washes him out. It's like a bad having somebody next to him. Just not a fan of A-Rod at all. You know what he always does, and you can probably back me on this, is he'll be talking about something, and then he's always got a story about himself for everything.
Exactly.
Like, shut up, dude.
You always tell him what he would do in that situation. It's like, shut up. just quit talking. But he just feels this need to constantly, it feels like, build himself up. And it's like, man, we know you were good. You don't have to tell it. And that's the difference between him and Jeter. You would never hear Jeter talk about himself in that way. And Jeter kind of had an air about him. He had a cockiness about him, but it wasn't verbal at all. You'll never find a clip of Jeter patting himself on the back. A-Rod, that's all he did. And he didn't need to do it. And he's still doing it today. I loathe A-Rod, the announcer. It's so bad.
So Tony Kemp is the A's second baseman. Man, can he fly. Did I ever tell you that when I was in high school, I ran a 4.140? Yeah, that was me. I can't, if you can't believe it. I mean, I really did. Yeah, it was awesome. Shut up, man.
Exactly.
Quiet. That's just whatever. Yeah. So we got to give Coach a little love here because former teammates. He's not a teammate, obviously. He's the leader of all of us, and he's the A's guy, man. So, he used to talk to me a lot about that 72, 73, 74 back-to-back championship teams, man. And when you go back and look at those teams, David, he always used to talk about the pitchers on them teams, and Vita Blue and Catfish Hunter and Kenny Holtzman, man. Those guys would win 20 games every season. They had 3 of them win 20 in one of those championship years. That's unheard of, man. But you know what, man? I saw a special on this team, and I forgot to talk to Coach about it too, because they talked about those 3 seasons with the A's, and what a crazy team that was. Just a bunch of guys that you look at, kind of like the 93 Phillies, and you would not think that a lot of those guys were ball players at all, man. Just by looking at them, not even close. And they won 3 in a row. And besides Reggie Jackson, I mean, who could name any of their offensive players, really, to be honest with you, from that team? Unless you're a huge A's fan or baseball fan, Sal Bando and Gene Tennis were like their 2 other stud hitters, on that team. And who's heard of them before? And they won 3 in a row, man. That Ollie Fingers at the end of that thing? I don't know.
Awesome. I'll go back and research that team, man. I know nothing about that team. Nothing.
Try to look up the special, A's fans, on the 72, 73, 74. I can't remember if it's an MLB Network or an ESPN one, but it's a pretty good documentary, and you got to check that out. But, yeah, Coach, I hope I'm totally wrong about your A's this year. I know you're a big fan, and I just don't see it.
He is, don't worry.
Yeah.
You are totally wrong. And while you're watching the A's win the World Series, get you a bottle of that white sauce. It'll change your life.
I am telling you, man. That's a good one, man, because I had some on my pork chop tonight. I kid you not. And I was thinking about bringing it down here and showing it to the camera here, and I completely forgot to. But, man, you got to get online and get some white sauce for all you guys out there. That stuff will definitely change your life. And you could put that stuff on anything, man. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Hey, I've got a great Coach story. Coach, I hope you're watching this. But the summer after, I believe, my sophomore year, Coach actually came to West Virginia, and we went fishing. And so me and Robert, we got in a boat. We head down the river. My dad and Coach Hall are in the boat behind us. And, man, this huge thunderstorm comes up. I'm talking scary. So me and Robert, we see it coming, and we just turn around and head back for the truck. My dad and Coach Hall, for some reason, decided to just keep going down the river. They were in a metal boat in water in the worst thunderstorm I have probably ever been a part of. And me and my dad laugh about that all the time. Coach, I hope you didn't hold it against me. But I'm not joking. Like, somebody could have died that day. But my dad brought this up yesterday. The fish that we caught, and we didn't catch very many, but Coach fried them up that night, and it was the best fish ever, man. Coach is one of the best cooks I've ever seen. I even tried his crawfish, which looked rancid. I'm not going to lie about it. I was afraid to touch it. It was actually really good. But, Coach, I appreciate all the memories. We've talked about the sacrifices you've made, and just appreciate all you did for us.
Man, he could cook. There is no doubt about it. He fed us well, man. Holy smokes. And we made a lot of really cool trips, got to see a lot of really cool things and in our careers, and a lot of that's his hard work and getting teams on the schedule that were really cool, and just a lot of things that he gave us that to this day, man, we appreciate. So thanks, Coach, and we hope that you're our one viewer on the A's, man, because we don't know anybody else who are A's fans, so you better check us out because we talked about the A's for over an hour.
Did we bring up the Coach story about the time he lost his keys and it was in the van door? Did we talk about that?
We did not, and I was just thinking about that like 5 minutes ago, to be honest with you.
Oh, that was a classic, man. That was a classic. And that's the same trip. I'm going to go ahead and tell the names of the people involved because a lot of people didn't know. But back in the day, Temple had these old vans, man, and they were pieces of junk. And on the back of them, they had an 80s logo, and it was a rainbow TTU. It was a TTU with a rainbow in it. And finally, I think it was our senior year, junior or senior year, on one of those trips, that trip with the keys, we decided that rainbow sticker was coming off. And I remember Ben Foster, I remember Lee was in on that. We went out there and peeled that thing off. And that same trip, Coach is looking for his keys. He can't find them anywhere. They were stuck in the door. And on that door was this gray spot, probably 3x3, just primer gray spot where we had peeled off the rainbow sticker. So, Coach, if you ever wondered who did that, and we'll have to help raise my hand on that one.
I did not do that, Coach. I was a good guy. I didn't do it. I was this guy over here, man. What a crazy guy. All right, well, David, unless you got anything else, man, I think we went over an hour on the A's. So,
all right, cool stuff, wrap it up.
All right, buddy. Well, all you A's fans out there, according to David, you're going to have a great season, and according to me, good luck in the high part of the draft next year. So
it could be.
With that, man, we'll sign off. David has once again an honor, privilege. So let's move on to the San Francisco Giants and throw up in our mouths a little bit more.
Amen.
All right. See you, everybody.
See ya.